But I think on my deathbed, I just hope that I've prepared my kids enough for the world that I think that they are going to have to deal with. Since COVID happened, I have had a real fear, like a visceral fear, that I need my daughters knowing how to do that, to take a seed and make it grow. I really hope that I'm training these girls. And the other hope is that the world that I fear is coming is not coming. You know, I was talking with a friend the other day. Our kids probably will not drive a car. They will drive a car that is self-driving. Yeah.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Eberly Stock. Eberly Stock is one of my favorite backpacks. Now, I've been wearing their backpack for almost 20 years. They have lightweight backpacks. They have modular backpacks, everything from their main frame, which is just a frame pack that you can put bags on. They have these cool outside called bat wings that you can use. So check them out at eberlystock.com and make sure you tell them Ike sent you. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Hornady. They make some of the best, most accurate, dependable ammo on the planet. No matter if you're coyote hunting or plinking steel or hunting big game out west or even going to Africa, they make a bullet or an ammo just for you. Some of the most accurate and dependable ammo on the planet. Also, check out my podcast with Steve Hornady and learn about ammo as well as their story and some funny anecdotes from Steve.
So we talked about, you know, military, and then you get out of the military and you have this burning desire to help these guys coming out of the military and trying to transition back into society. And you work with a couple foundations, right? Are you still doing that?
No.
Okay, so
through my wife, yeah, but
yeah, because
not
she works at
actively.
one. All right, so
I still help out. Anybody needs help, question about Facebook, and things like that. But I mean, I'm not actively like.
Okay, so what is that? What is that? How did you get into it? What is it? Why is it important? And let's talk about the Amazon. So those are the four things.
I mean, it was another thing, kind of like the intel that I kind of stumbled into. And that was, I had seen some things that I didn't think. So, all right. So if we talk about Vietnam, there was a total lack of care for veterans, right?
Yeah.
And so then we were having this knee-jerk reaction that was kind of going, in my opinion, a little too far. Right. So, and what I mean by that is just like the same thing we do with our kids. We don't just tell our kids like, hey, you can go, every time we go to the grocery store, here's $1,000. You can go buy whatever, Snickers. And
right.
And so, like I was saying earlier, I really wanted to design things to, one, teach people how to be independent in the outdoors with whatever new disadvantage they had, and to not dwell on it. And so, you see somebody like, oh, I can't do this. And I'm like, well, no, you just have to do it differently. And JD, I go back to him. He's my 101st sniper. He had all these guys. So JD's missing both legs and an arm. JD loved bow hunting. Loved it. And so him and another archery guy came up with this idea. And they used a mouth guard that he put on the back of the bowstring, and he grabbed the bow and pushed the bow out.
Oh my gosh!
And shoots. And I'd have to show you a video.
I actually have seen the video. I've seen the video. It's on YouTube.
And JD will tell you that he shoots because he can shoot lights out.
Yeah,
but it's an advantage for him because he doesn't have the extra. It's just straight line. I'm like, JD, it's not an advantage.
I don't know how the math works up with that. But.
And so when you got to see somebody like JD do that, and JD trying his butt off to go camp by himself and catch fish and eat it, he's a Montana boy, right? Mm-hmm. So, and he failed a couple of times, and it just didn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I wanted that. I loved that spirit, and I loved trying to make sure that we were in a good place with that. And, you know, and then aside to this day, I mean, me sharing the joy of hunting and teaching somebody to hunt is like, it's my favorite thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just like Donnie Goodman, who shared that with me when I was a kid.
Right.
And I think that what I really saw was, and don't get me wrong, I got into veteran employment and some of that other stuff that wasn't quite as sexy as elk hunting or whatnot.
Right.
But as I started meeting people, I started coming into these opportunities where you would meet these different people that were like, hey, look, we'll bring vets in. And then, you know, all I had to do was find the money to fly them to different places and do some things. So we had done some things like, you know, the ranches, I wanted to run as many kids and many vets as I could as possible. But I also wanted to I love international travel. And we will come back around to some international travel stories. And
when you talked about
and
Nepal and
things like that. And I wanted to share, because, you know, you get some of these vets and like, they've never traveled outside of, you know. So we did some stuff.
A portion of them signed up so they could travel the world so they could see it. Yeah.
And so
they had the adventure, but not the means.
Right. And so, but also a lot of times people think international travel is super expensive when in actuality, you can sometimes go somewhere, you know, much cheaper. So we did some New Zealand stuff. We did Africa, these other things. And we just wanted to kind of teach people. And then, you know, kind of what you guys do, you know, is sort of, you know, you get to the back of the Eastmans and this is how you put in a tag for an elk in Colorado.
Right.
I mean, for people that have never done that, this is super daunting. I'm like, whoa, let's start with Colorado.
Right.
Let's just pick a unit.
Right.
Put in, we draw, you know, and getting them used to that kind of stuff. So I met this guy, one of the most interesting humans I've ever come across, a guy named John King Carter. John's been on David Letterman. John's been on TED, you know, talks and whatnot. And I have no idea how there is not a movie about this guy.
John
King Carter.
Okay.
So he was in the first Gulf War and I think he was a scout. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Sorry, John. But John gets out after the Gulf War, goes to TCU, and he meets this pretty young girl at TCU who's the son of a Brazilian rancher and falls in love with her and starts going and talking with him. And like, I was amazed at when you find out, when you hear about the Amazon rainforest burning, most of the time it is the actions of organized crime.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's no law out there. Absolutely no law. And so Ike Eastman owns 30,000 acres of cattle land. I'm going to go catch it on fire, make him run back to Guyana, and then I'm going to take it over and I'm going to grow soybeans and sell it to hippies. And that's how the deforestation is happening.
Actually happening.
Yeah. I mean, and so John, I'm wondering what is published that I can say of this.
This isn't classified, but it might be under the bro code.
So basically, John goes down there and starts sort of battling this. Brazil has crazy gun laws, right? So you can own a gun, but it has to be like a .32 caliber pistol, or I think it's like a .410 shotgun, or it's stuff that just well. John's big idea as he's battling all this stuff, and please go find him on David Letterman or TED. I mean, he tells the story way better. All these indigenous people that are in, you know, these indigenous tribes that are still totally indigenous, are the ones that are right by these fires. So John, through Alianza de Terra, a nonprofit, starts bringing in U.S. smoke jumpers to train the indigenous tribes how to fight the fires. How to fight the fires, like, right? Because they're the first line defenders, and he'd been doing it for years and years. And so he basically invites us down for me to bring some guys down. And I mean, I could do a whole podcast on this trip because there's so many things that don't make sense. I mean, we're going to get into some UAP stuff.
Really?
We're going to get into some stuff that just doesn't make sense, and just the magic of like the freaking Amazon. It doesn't make any sense. So we fly in, and it's hell getting there. You mean you don't realize how far Brazil, like it's.
You're close. You could fly to Africa and at the same time. Same amount of time.
We get down to like Guyana, and so John was just kind of like, hey, I want to warn you guys about some stuff when y'all get here. We'll kind of go through a debriefing. So I'm like, oh yeah, we got to watch out for bad guys and things like that. You know, that's what he's going to tell us about. And
big freaking snakes, stuff like that.
You know, anacondas,
like gators that are, or crocodiles that are, 22 feet long, stuff.
So then we got to take this like 4-hour bush plane ride that, I mean, we tried to hit the runway like 4 times, and we like, it's just crazy. We finally land and we get there, and John's got this beautiful family. He's 2 daughters, and his wife Kika is just awesome. And
so is John living down there at this point?
Yeah, they have to go back and forth because their lives are in danger down there.
Oh,
so they live in Nashville most of the time, and then they go down there. But they're marked people.
Yeah.
And he starts telling us, he's like, okay, while you guys are here, you might see the lights. And starts telling us about the lights. And I mean, I'm like, I don't understand. He's like, well, we had a girl that worked on the ranch. She was riding her bike into town. The lights happened on top of her. She was on the next plane out of there. She's gone. And so he was describing these lights. They're not like a spotlight. It's just daylight in a place. It's just, it'll just happen spontaneously. And so we didn't really come across it. And we were out, mostly we were fishing like tributaries coming into the Amazon. This is like the 3rd night we'd been
peacock
out.
bass.
Peacock bass. And I mean, it was funny. The water temperature had actually cooled down like 2 degrees, and it made it cold. So we couldn't catch them on top water. So we were catching peacock, but we were catching them on rattle traps and things like that. And we were catching all kinds of catfish. So we go out at night and we're catching the catfish. And he's like, there they are. And down the river, there's part of the riverbank, and it's just daylight on that one corner. It's the only way I can describe it. And then it just shuts off and goes to night, and there's daylight over here. And it just kind of goes. John's like,
left,
yep,
right,
that's
left,
the lights.
Right. You're kidding me.
And but it's not lights. It's not like something shining. It's just daylight. And there's
like somebody had a spotlight.
No.
On, you got to describe it now.
It's like if you're in the middle of the dark, and you just look out, and let's say there's a peninsula coming out of the river. It's just daylight on that peninsula, and then all of a sudden it's dark. And the whole time he'd been down there, he talked about it, and you can.
I've been down there. I never have ever heard of this. And this is crazy.
They say like they see things, and it's all so weird. And so you've got the lights that sort of creeped me out because I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? And so part of our plan was that we were going to go stay with this indigenous tribe that they were big fighters in jiu-jitsu. Oh God, what's the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy? He had gone and filmed an acai berry commercial. So what they do is like the way you score points. If you and I are like wrestling, if I slap the back of your thigh, it's like a point. It's a different type of score. Well, we were supposed to go. They invited us to come fight in their tournament. And so we're like, yeah. Well, unfortunately, a witch came into the village. This is what we were told, right? And killed, disguised as a leopard or a jaguar. Would have been a jaguar.
Jaguar.
Disguised as a leopard and killed somebody. So they were in mourning. And so they're all nude, but when they're in mourning, they dress in like our clothes because they see that as like sloppy, and they're showing, it's kind of, but these people were fantastic. Like they were so welcoming, and we weren't allowed to stay in the village because this sort of, this death had happened and whatnot. But they feed us and they explain their whole ways. They only fish in the dry season so they fish when the lakes and the rivers are small, and then they only hunt in the wet season when the land is small. And so they have like their arrows, they have notches, and so they're made to like go in, and they call them like river deer or something like that. I mean, they're like a small red deer. So as they run, these things are just working their way in. And they talked about the people that have come and helped them in the past. And one of them that they have drawn on this thing looks like your quintessential alien that you see in Roswell. Like,
seriously?
These are people that are separated from everything.
How much Wyoming whiskey have we drank? You're telling me that these indigenous people have on drawings, and they talk about the people from generations back coming down and introducing themselves to them, just like you did. One of them looks like a Roswell alien?
One of them looks like kind of like something closer in between like that and E.T. Like, I know, it's crazy. And so what they say that these people came and helped them is they showed them all the medicines in the Amazon. And they, I guess I should go back. When we land in this airplane. So I've got two guys missing legs, and it's just kind of, we step off, the kids just run. They're terrified. They've never seen warriors and whatever. And so they consider John an adopted part of this village, right?
Because he's married in, basically.
He's married. Yeah, and so the village of America got attacked, and we were America's village protectors. That's how they see it. They think America is just, they know it's bigger or whatever, but I'm dumbing it down.
No, I get it.
And so we started, they're kind of standoffish just a little bit. They're getting to know us. And some of our guys are tattoo guys, and they see some of these tattoos. And they're like, oh, so through translating, and they're going, what is that? Oh, he got this for defending the village. And one of the guys just doesn't really know any better. And he's like, could I get a tattoo like that? Could you guys give me one of those? And they're like, oh. Essentially what he was asking was like, could I get a Medal of Honor? Could you give me one of those silver stars?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, no. And they kind of went to John. They were like, we didn't mean to be rude, but this is kind of what he asked for and whatnot. So unbeknownst to us, they have this meeting. The elders gather, and they decide that, hey, since we defended John's village, America, they were going to allow these tattoos to be given out, which hadn't been given out in 20 years or so.
Oh, my gosh.
And the dumbass of me, I'm not a tattoo guy. I didn't want one. Such an idiot. Like, why didn't I get one? So I have video.
I'm sorry. You keep that silver star to yourself. Yeah. I don't want one.
So what they said they wanted to do for me, because, at that time I have this device in me and I have this battery in me, whole other thing. I was freaking the kids out. So they were like, we're going to heal you. So I've got this stuff on video that's on like Military Warriors. It was kind of bad because the camera guy couldn't show up. I had to film it. The mic broke. It was messed up, but still video. So they're getting these tattoos that hadn't been given in like 20, 30 years for defending this village. So for me, they're telling me, hey, we're going to give you, and John's kind of translating. They're talking about giving you like a steroid and then some stuff to help you with your pain. So they don't have needles, but they know they need to get the medicine into the blood. So the way that they do that is they have a turtle shell with a whole bunch of piranha teeth in a row. And they take it and they scrape it, ripping your skin. I mean, it's a horrible sound.
Oh my gosh.
It is a horrible sound. So this is back like probably 2012 or something like that. I was still in a lot of pain from things that I'm doing. And they told me, like, this is what all the fighters take. This is the thing. Dude, I'm telling you, they scratched it in, and then to sanitize it, they have chili peppers that they put on top of you, and then they put this medicine and they rub it in. And this is stuff that they claim the helpers, came and did this. I, for 30 to 60 days, felt like a superhuman. Like,
seriously,
my pain was away. I mean, I felt amazing. Like, it was wild. And towards the end of the trip, the chief's son, he was like, hey, Dad, these guys came to kind of fight. We got to show them around. And I mean, I'm not like I was more of a boxer, but I did a bunch of combatives. I'm not bad. This guy was smaller than me. This guy was shorter than me. He did not look strong. I could not control a thing that this guy did. I mean, like, I'm telling you, like, he was the strongest pound for pound. It didn't make sense.
Really?
It was Anderson Silva. So Anderson Silva had gone there prior to us to film this Acai energy drink commercial. Anderson Silva at the time had not been beaten. He got beat in that village and never talked about it. All the villagers saw him get beat by the chief's son.
Really?
And Anderson Silva is a lot bigger than me.
Yeah, he is.
And I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I'm telling you, it was this kid. I mean, I'd grab his wrist and I'd just be like, "What the?" It's like grabbing Captain America's wrist. It was such an interesting time to be, and I mean, I think that was one of all of us just still will see each other and be like, God, you remember that? Like, I mean,
that's crazy.
But it was just an amazing trip into the Amazon that I can't explain a lot of the stuff, whether it be the drugs that I was given through a turtle shell and piranha teeth or the lights, but
no idea what the drug were.
None. And John's just like, hey, it's just some kind of like, it's basically like equivalent to like a steroid.
Jeez.
That's what they take to be strong and work out. And, there's jaguars growling and trying to come into the village every night. But those people were super happy. They hunt, fish, take care of, everything, turtle soup or whatever. Yeah. We went out gigging peacock bass. And, we're like poling through at night and there's just anacondas underneath us. It was wild.
It's a crazy place.
Yeah.
It is a super
so
crazy
you've been
place.
down there too?
Yeah. My dad, my brother and I went down on a peacock bass fishing trip with a group of guys. And we were staying in, the equivalent of a camper put on pontoons, and they all put them.
So y'all
put
are
them
on
together.
the river?
Yeah, we're on the river, and we crazy story similar to yours. Trying to land, and the rain was bad, and the mud was bad, and we landed up north, right up by on a border town of Venezuela. Hung out in that airport for a while, so we got to see the cattle land, and then flew back. And when we landed the airplane, we went sideways down the muddy runway, almost ended up in the trees. It's just crazy, but. Those people are amazing. We'd get hooked up. We were fly fishing, and you get hooked up, snagged, and the guy put on his little freaking goggles and dive down into that water, get unhooked, and come back, and he'd have a turtle, or he'd have a frog, or he'd have a freaking snake wrapped around his leg or his arm, and he'd cut the head off and throw it in the cooler. Just weird stuff. Weird.
I mean, so John had told us ahead of time, like I brought like some fish hooks, knives, and sunglasses, and I was like trading them for like longbows. And when these longbows shoot like atlatls, like
they're huge arrows, huge.
And
you're like, why would you need an arrow that long? You can't see that far.
The broadheads were made out of monkey bones, which was a little bit of revenge that I liked. With the monkey bones.
Monkeys.
But so, I'd be remiss if I wouldn't tell this story on myself about leaving the Amazon. So last night in the Amazon, we probably have a little bit too much to drink. And Kika has made this beautiful fish dinner for our last kind of lunch. And we're getting on this plane and we're going out. And she'd made fish all week long. It was so good. And I ate all this fish and it was great. And there was one piece of fish. And I got it in my mouth. I was like instantly like, oh, something's wrong with that one piece of fish. Something's wrong. Like it was super fishy. And it all of a sudden my stomach started to kind of churn. And I was like,
this isn't good.
This isn't good.
Go get on an airplane this way.
A bush plane.
Yeah.
A bush plane.
Yeah, there's no toilet.
So we get on this bush plane and I'm sitting in the front and we take off. And like, so I think I exaggerated the ride. I think it was like 3 hours, right? I think I said 4 that it took in. So let's say it's 3 hours. We get 30 minutes in and I start fighting the puke war.
Ooh.
And there's nobody to talk to. There's nobody. The guys that I have with me are all asleep in the back with all of our gear. The pilot doesn't speak English. And I'm fighting it. I'm like, you got this, Josh. You got this. You can make it. You know. And so I get to points where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be fine. And man, we start hitting this turbulence. I mean, this is bad. And I make it to about 20 minutes before we land, and the air gets really, really rough. And I'm like, I need to ask for help. Like, I'm now bad. So I look at the guy, and I'm like, you know, and it's not Spanish that he's speaking. He's speaking Portuguese. I got nothing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know, telling him I got to throw up. And he's like, oh, you know, bag. He's like
reaching across you.
So he's like flying like this, opening up the glove compartment, like looking for this bag. And so I mean, he's looking all over. And then he gets to a point and he just looks at me and he's like,
it's gone. There isn't one.
So I sat back and I was like, okay. And then it just went boof. And I just threw up on the inside of the airplane. It's
across the instrument panel?
Because the instrument panel's like right here. So I'm like on the windshield right here.
Oh.
The smell is so horrific that it takes 2.5 seconds to wake the guys up in the backs. And they're just like, what is going on? You know,
my.
It's horrible. I mean, imagine like rotten salmon vomit is what it smelled like. And
a brown bear stomach.
Oh, dude. So
February.
We finally land at this place. I just have to go throw all my clothes away, taking like a shower. I got to Guyana. I threw up I don't know how many times in Guyana. I got to Atlanta, threw up how many. I mean, just threw up the whole way back. Like it was rough. But
that's as brutal as it gets.
But dude, I mean, I'm telling you, it woke those guys up out of a deep slumber. Like,
so you think it was food poisoning?
I mean, I think it was probably just a bad piece of fish. I mean, it probably didn't help with the amount of alcohol that we had drank the night before, but it was definitely something more than just being hungover.
Oh my gosh!
But yeah, it was a rough one, man.
So hey, you said this a few minutes ago. We took a little break for the sponsorship announcement, but you told me that there was space between. You skipped over this before. And I'm not going to let you get away with this. There was a space between college and the military.
Yes.
So when did you graduate college?
I actually never did.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, I never did.
You never graduated? You went all the way because you were talking about your end.
So I started interning and then I got a job and they were like, I had like 5 hours left. They're like, just finish it up later.
Oh my gosh.
And so when I was going to finish it in Iraq, and when I got to so the Army will pay for in-state tuition. But when I moved to Germany, East Tennessee State was where I'd been going to college. I didn't have a Tennessee. They wouldn't let me have in-state tuition.
Because you went to Germany.
Because I went to Germany. And so I signed up for my classes. We thought it was all good. And the Army wouldn't pay for it. I was like, I mean, it was a really frustrating thing because here I am 5 hours away, a 2-hour credit class, and it was electives. It didn't even freaking matter. And East Tennessee State was a pain in the rear. Like I had like their military affairs guy, which was supposed to help me. And then he kind of turned on me. I mean, it was just stupid. I was just like, just let me graduate. And
you really only had to take 5
hours.
5 hours, 5 credit hours, like
5 hours.
2, like 1.5 classes of elective, which is
Yeah.
basket weaving.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was so there was time between then.
Mm-hmm. So,
You ended up in Nepal, is what I'm
right.
trying
So
to head to.
I will have to admit that I maybe was not the most dedicated college student.
Yeah, but the story on how you ended there is funny. There was a professor, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was an English major at the time, and I was supposed to be doing like an independent study a semester, and I didn't do any of them. And so basically it came down to it, and I was going to basically have to do, well, not basically, I was going to have to do a semester where it was like 4 independent studies. It was stupid. So I was at a conference with this professor, and he was pretty close with me, and he was, obviously he was pretty disappointed. He was just like, dude, what the hell, like, he's like, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to fix this? And so I said this sentence without even really thinking. I said, what if I just went to Nepal and did it? He goes, it's Friday. You better have a proposal to me by Monday. And I went home that weekend, and I was like, okay. So I went in, and then so the English department was like, look, we can't do 4 independent studies in one semester. You're going to have to go to, so I went to journalism, and then I went to my minor, which was anthropology. And so basically I need to quit using the word basically. I hate it when I do that. I went to India, and I was going to spend a portion of that in the anthropology studying the epidemiology of the Tibetan refugee population. The Tibetans are being kicked out by the communist Chinese.
Yeah, and that was right in the middle of Save Tibet.
Yeah, and so you're talking about it's a horrific thing that happens, right? China only allows them to have 2 kids, and most of the Tibetan government in exile is in Dharamsala, India. Well, the Chinese guard those posts, and so to get these kids across the border, they have to wait till it's too cold for the Chinese guards
to care.
Yeah. Or to abandon their posts. And so you've got these kids doing these mountain gangrene and all kinds of stuff. It was really bad. So I got to go. I had to meet all these different doctors in different cities, and Dharamsala was the biggest hospital that I studied at, and followed doctors around and how they treated people. And it was eye-opening. I'll never forget, there was a girl, I thought she was 6-7 years old, and I'm like, God, that's just a little kid. And they're like, Josh, she's 18.
What?
But she was emaciated from a multitude of diseases, and,
oh my gosh.
It was rough. And so all these kids are parentless because the parents are like, I would rather my kid grow up to be Tibetan and learn what it is to be Tibetan than, to be subjugated to this communist rule. So I had a heart for the Tibetans. I hate communism. You know, I watched all the 80s communism movies. So
Red Dawn,
Rocky, Rocky. Yeah, you could include Rocky, Rambo, all that. So I have a deep hatred for communism.
Every James Bond movie in the 80s.
So I had never really been about, I'm just going to get to what you want me to talk about. I'd never really been around monkeys. And so I get to the first day I get there, I get to Mumbai, India, and go out to eat on Elephanta Island. I'm like,
you're doing this by yourself. You're like,
yeah, I did have some friends that came in and out, right, in different times. And then when we went and did Everest Space Camp, we had another friend come. So I've got a friend with me, Natasha, and we go out to Elephanta Island, and Mumbai was, dude, I'd been to big cities before. I'd never seen anything. I was not ready for Mumbai. Have you ever been there? whew, there's just little kids, like they're 4 years old, holding up signs in the middle of the highway, and cars are just, it's shanties. It's a really rough thing. I'd never seen anything like it. They say it's like the second worst slum in the world.
Wow.
Any of them are bad. And so just sitting here eating some Indian food, enjoying it. And I'm looking over, and there's like this guy in this military uniform, and he's got this long pole and like a whip on it. What could that guy be doing?
That's a weird weapon.
And this woman and man are eating right over here, and this monkey jumps out of this tree, and like starts stealing her food. And the guy steps forward, whips this monkey, hits the monkey in the butt. The monkey jumps back in the tree, and he goes right back to like attention. I'm like, the guy's obvious job is the monkey chaser away guy. And so over my time, I came to have more negative interactions with monkeys. And so in Dharamsala, there's a road to get to the hospital, but if you're just walking, there's this trail that you're going up in the Himalayas to get, which I had to go up almost every day. And these monkeys would sort of taunt me and throw poop at me and stuff like that. I didn't really care for it. And so one night I come into my little hotel room in Dharamsala, and I opened my bathroom, and a monkey had broken in the window and is like eating toothpaste, and it's just, they're wretched creatures. So I'm up.
They're grizzly bears.
Yeah.
My dad calls grizzly bears North American monkeys.
They're like Wolverines. And so I'm reading a book up on this, like the way the hotel is, there's hotel rooms, and there's this nice kind of top, it's not a balcony, it's just the top floor on this, and there's steps, and I was staying up above. It was beautiful. It had this beautiful view of the Himalayas. And I'm just reading a book, and the Tibetan woman is washing laundry, and she's got a baby, and she sort of motions to me like, hey, I'm going to go take laundry down. Can you watch the baby?
God. Baby's in like a bassinet.
Like a bassinet, yeah, just sitting right there. So I'm just reading. The baby's asleep, no big deal. And I look up, and here comes this monkey, and it's like creeping up on this baby. And in my head, I'm like, oh, no, monkey, not on my watch. And so, and just like when I tell people how, like, what a baboon, like, people are like, oh, it's just a little monkey. These things are closer to like a baboon. They're not baboon size, but they're big. And what I would come to find out is that you never really want to show monkeys your teeth, because it's a sign of aggression.
You're going to get in a fight.
Yeah. And so this monkey comes running towards that baby. I think it was just curious of what it was going to – was it going to eat the baby? No. It's probably looking for something to steal. So I jump in front. I'm just like, ah! And, dude, that monkey comes at me at like Mach 5. Teeth and claws. The baby's over here, and this monkey's coming to me. And,
and he's like 3 foot tall. This isn't a chihuahua.
He's coming at me, and I just jumped off the roof.
Jumped? Wait. You jumped off? How far is this?
So we're talking, this is probably 10 feet, and so it's like mud down below, and the mom is like doing laundry. So she's just sitting there doing laundry, and she just sees me just jump off the roof,
and she's like hanging clothes up on a line.
She knew exactly what had happened. So she goes, and I'll watch her. She picks up 2 rocks. She goes up there, and she chases the monkey away. And she tells me, like, you just, even if you don't find a rock, pretend like you pick something up and go. But this thing was coming at me, and I don't know. I just jumped. Like,
oh my gosh,
not real proud of it. But
I jumped off the roof. Wait, where's the baby?
I just left the baby. I abandoned the baby. There was another time that
the door closes.
The door closes. Yes. So I got this really cool opportunity to interview this basically guerrilla warfare Tibetan guy that had been fighting the Chinese, and he'd kind of retired, and he was staying around, and he's kind of
Jim Bridger of their time.
Yeah, so there's Chinese spies all over the place in this. So this guy's kind of careful. So through a mediary, I get and go meet him, and he's like, okay, come up to this apartment. And, when I'm saying apartment, you just got to understand it's a smaller building. It's not like an apartment like you're thinking.
It's an office.
So I come up and I open this door, and it's like you come out, and it's like I opened one of those automatic doors to the roof on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking, there's hundreds of monkeys just having sex. Like everywhere. I mean, they're making noises like, ah. I mean, I'm sitting there like, holy crap. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, I got to get out of here. And that door goes shunk and closes. And every single one of those monkeys just looks at me. I've never gotten on top of a roof.
It's like a Western. Yeah. Everything stops and they all look at you like,
yeah,
new, fresh meat.
It was, monkeys. And,
monkeys are not fun.
Monkeys are not fun.
A lot of people look at monkeys and they're like, oh, they're like humans. No,
Didn't you watch Indiana Jones? I did.
Exactly. They may look like a human. They are not. I tell you nasty creatures.
That Tibetan woman, I mean, she was right. Like ever since I've ever had any other, like Costa Rica, because you go to some of those parks and the monkeys will like try to, you leave your backpack on the beach. They try to get in and steal everything in it. You just pretend like you're picking something up and, but that trip, both India and Nepal, I really did love. It's once you get up that high, man, it's amazing. Like there's just, when you get at altitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like I was sitting on the backside of Gokyo-ri, which is that mountain is the only place you can really climb and see the north face of Everest without being in China.
Wow.
And we're sleeping at 16, like 5.
Wow.
Down in the valley, in Gokyo Valley. Like we're sleeping.
Wow.
And dude, I'm telling you, like I got to climb 2 18ers, right? Kalapatar and what was it? I'm getting old. What was the other one? Gokyo. Yeah. But you would be sleeping and you would roll over and your pillow would like hit your nostril and you'd wake up like gasping for breath.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's, and you're getting to the point where you cut yourself. It just doesn't heal. It just, but yeah, it's a beautiful place, man.
How long did you spend over there?
I was there like 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was there a long time. It was, and I mean, I don't know what it is to stay in a hotel in Dharamsala, but I think it was like $1 a night at that time. Like it was awesome. I love travel. I love being in places that I probably don't belong. And
have you taken your girls out much?
Yeah, they love it. And I try to, with them, do daddy-daughter individual trips.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's like, God, you're such a good kid when you're by yourself, not fighting for attention. You really are a good kid.
So you talk about you talk about travel. You talk about, so what is Josh going to be thinking about on your deathbed? What's important to you now? All these experiences that you have had, what's important to you now that you're going to be remembering?
So if we're talking about on my deathbed, and it's funny, the same professor that I told you about that I had to do the project for, he had a writing class, and the first assignment when you got into that class on the first day was he had you write your obituary. He'd been doing it for like 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
And it was almost 100%. The females were like, I lived a long life with my grandchildren. And almost all the males were like, I got attacked by a grizzly bear. I was defending, it was a, different thing. So, of course, I hope that my wife is, doesn't have anything to worry about, all that, love her to death.
This episode is sponsored by Sawyer Products. Sawyer is a cool company that provides not just great products like water filtration systems, first aid kits, insect repellent, and sunscreen. They also are giving clean drinking water to people around the world. Every time you buy a water filter, be it the small one for your water bottle or the one you hook onto a garden hose, you and Sawyer are helping a developing country with good, clean water systems. Their insect repellent is astonishing. They even have some you spray on your clothes or your pets to keep those creepy, nasty crawlies away. Their sunscreen works so well you only have to apply a few times a day versus every 50 minutes with the other guys. It is truly amazing. So go get some Sawyer products that not only work great, but also give back to the communities around the world. Check them out at Sawyer.com and tell them you heard it at Eastmans. This episode is sponsored by Fold AR. Have you ever wanted to carry a little more firepower than just a pistol? In the current trying times, it'd be nice to have an AR that fits in a backpack the size of a briefcase. Fold AR has solved that problem for you. They come in a few different versions: fold in half rifles, fold in thirds, and even an AR pistol. Don't worry about finding the perfect backpack to fit them in. They come in a backpack specifically for them, and they look just like a regular small pack. Fold ARs don't just fold up and conceal easily, but they are very safe and will hold their own at the range. Fold AR is the perfect combination of concealment and firepower.
But I think on my deathbed, I just hope that I've prepared my kids enough for the world that I think that they are going to have to deal with, because I don't really know. I don't know how to raise a kid with a cell phone. I don't know if I'm making the right choices. I mean, we were the strictest. My daughter was like the only kid in middle school that didn't have a cell phone. And we're the crazy strict parents that didn't, so I think there's been a lot of things, I've always grown up planting and farming and doing that. I really get enjoyment out of plants. I love growing hot peppers. I love growing my own food. And I've done that since I was a kid. Since COVID happened, I have had a real fear, like a visceral fear, that I need my daughters knowing how to do that, to take a seed and make it grow. And so I've been focusing on that. My wife probably thinks I'm a little bit crazy sometimes, but that would be my deathbed. I really hope that I'm training these girls. And the other hope is that the world that I fear is coming is not coming.
That they're over-prepared because it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Because, it's, I was talking with a friend the other day. Our kids probably will not drive a car. They will drive a car that is self-driving.
Yeah, that's true.
My
oldest is driving right now, so she gets to drive. But you're right. We are right on the cusp of that.
My buddy went and he had to kill some time with his sons. And they went to a Tesla dealership, and he was like, "You wouldn't believe it." They drove that new Tesla. It was a couple years ago. We rented an SUV to go to Colorado, and they didn't have it. I had some problems with my truck, so we were like, it'd be smarter. And so they had to give us the top of the line Escalade so we lucked out. I didn't want to use a self-driving thing. So I'm driving on I-10 through Junction, which is like super curvy. And we tried it out. Dude, it was handling those curves. It was I'd come up on a vehicle, it would signal. And I'm like this on the steering wheel, like not touching it.
But touching it, yeah.
And this was, a couple years ago, but like it's advancing to a point. And I said, we're probably going to be at a point in a couple of years, how we look back on horseback riding. And it's like a hobby.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be what going to a ranch and driving an old truck is.
You're right. But preparing them for the world that we hope doesn't happen is, that's great.
It's scary for me. I want them to be better prepared than I was, be better off than I was. And I see that it's going to take a lot of luck, preparation to make that happen. And what I fear is the road we're going down.
Yeah. So One of the other questions that I ask every one of my guests is if you could do a TED Talk, and this will be interesting. You know what a TED Talk is. It's like under 15, it's around that 15, 18-minute world, something that you're passionate about. You may not be an expert at it, but you're passionate about it and you're knowledgeable of what would you do a TED Talk on?
So I was warned ahead of time, so I thought about this.
I hope you weren't warned because these are deep questions.
I know. So I know what it is. So one, this is what when you go do, right, because the military was still, when I told you we were using like the old school when I went through basic, they're still teaching us to shoot out of foxholes. And I was like, whoever shoots out of foxholes, which now we see the Ukraine war, trench warfare is all over again.
There's nothing
it's
new
crazy.
under the sun.
But they were doing a lot of, MOUT training. So we're talking about urban, and the number one thing that you have to know when you're flowing through rooms and you're flowing through and you're doing that is you have to work as a team. You have to be water, and you have to overwhelm your target. And the line that has stuck with me, that it keeps coming up because I see it in business, I see it in people, and I see it more and more in this anxious society. Indecision is worse than a bad decision.
Indecision.
If the guy in the front is indecisive, number 2, 3, 4, 5 can't make a decision to help him.
Oh my gosh.
So if number 1 comes in the room and he was supposed to go right and he goes left, number 2 can make a change. Number 3, everybody can flow into that room. And that's the principles of, because that's what happens. You don't know what the room is, right? You may think you're dog-legging to the right, and you go in there and you're a wall, so you just have to react. And so you can correct bad decisions. You can't correct indecision. And I've actually used this. When we were working with companies and getting grants, I would get asked to speak. And that's what I would speak to companies about. And I've watched it paralyze so many companies, and I've watched it kill companies.
We were talking about one today.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It kills them. And, it's the other term I hear a lot of time is paralysis by analysis. But that indecision, I'm seeing it get more and more prevalent with just decisions on everything. And that's what I've been trying to talk to my girls about a lot of times. Be decisive. If you make a mistake, go correct it, fix it. I'm not saying just jump, don't just jump in there, but take the data that you have, make the decision, move on, make the next decision. And, I feel like sometimes our girls are being told, well, it's okay. You have anxiety. Well, you have anxiety because you're not making decisions. Make the decisions.
You've got paralysis.
Everybody's got anxiety.
Yeah, you got paralysis.
Make those decisions. But I think, to me, I see people in upper management that are completely screwing their companies over and over again because they cannot make a decision.
That is very, very, very wise. And stupid wise.
And I go back to, sometimes when I get caught to where I go back to, okay, I'm clearing a room. I don't know what's in the room. How do I'm making the decisions on the best information I have at that time, and don't get me wrong, I'm still indecisive about stuff. I've missed some really good opportunities about being indecisive. But I try to get better and better each day by making decisions.
So I'm going to add to that. I think you're right, 100%. The starting is indecision. But I think adding to that is if you make a bad decision, recognize it and correct it.
Learn from it.
And it's not just you were talking about companies, or you're talking about it's more than that. It's in a marriage. It's in parenting. It's in walking across the street. It's in dealing with whatever you're dealing with. Make the decision. If it's wrong, recognize it, correct it, apologize for it.
And the decision is not going to be made by avoidance. And so you see a lot of avoidance. But, if you come back to the military application of that, you and I are in a stack.
Mm-hmm.
We come in that room and I screw up.
Mm-hmm.
I've got guys right behind me that I trust that but if I don't let you help me, like, and it happens all the time in stacks. Like I said, you go in, you're like, shit, there's a wall or there's a couch
right
that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
But if you freeze in that hallway, in that fatal funnel where you can get killed, everybody's going to get killed because you're being indecisive.
Don't stop in the doorway.
Yep.
That's unbelievably insightful. Awesome.
I try to do that, and I coach myself, and I have to talk to myself like, man, you're feeling anxious about this. If you don't feel like you have all the information, then go study more information.
If you have time.
If you have time. And that's what I try to do to be a better marketer, a better, and you get into all this Google Analytics and all this stuff, like, it's data. It's not, just like I told you about the Defense Intelligence Report, about the goat herder thing. Okay. If you're relying on Google Analytics to tell you what is doing best, Google Analytics is not this unbelievable benevolent power. They're selling you advertising. They're going to tell you just like the news, right? So you can read Fox News and it's going to say one thing. You can read CNN, it's going to say another thing. You could go read a newspaper from Pakistan, from India, they're all going to say different things because those papers and those news agencies are made not to provide news, to sell advertising, to get you to read it and click and do that thing.
Generate a profit. And
so that stuff, is just, don't get, I don't want to go down a tangent on Google Analytics. Anybody that has to deal with it, but the data is great. Data is wonderful, but as we find over and over again, sometimes data was incorrect.
Yeah.
With more information down the line, like we talked about the food pyramid.
Yep.
Food pyramid is the biggest scam, probably that's gone through. And who was it made by? The USDA, that was basically a marketing arm for the grain companies that told you should eat more sugar and less beef. Screw that.
Beef's hard to grow. Sugar wasn't.
Yeah.
Come to find out, there's more profit in it. So one of the other things, and we skipped across this a fair amount, but one of the things that, because you hunt a lot and you're teaching your girls how to hunt, and you're in a hunting industry, not 100% hunting industry. Obviously, you do the military
but
side
it used
stuff.
to be.
Yeah. What is the thing that gets you in the field? What drives you to do it every year, to maintain the ranch lease and maintain those opportunities?
It's changed, and so I'm not the trigger puller a lot anymore. And that's okay. Like, I love seeing my girls and my wife. I love it. And, I think, don't take this the wrong way to make it sound like I'm some greenie, but you only protect what you love.
Yeah.
And the outdoors and hunting dies if we don't teach these kids to love it. And so I try to be really, really hard. Like, girls don't get to shoot a buck until they've shot a pig, a doe. They help out with ranch work. Like, it's not like, hey, we're going to go find the biggest buck on the ranch. No, you have not earned that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love watching them. And we're going down this weekend when I get back. And so we're going to go work and whatnot. They enjoy working and preparing, almost as much as hunting. But for me, hunting, I don't know, it's not a choice. It's just, I feel like it's just part of me. Like, I just feel There's nothing. And, you know, there's times where, like, I don't even have to have a gun. I can just sit back and watch some deer fight or, you know, move through and whatnot. You know, but I'm kind of at this point. Don't get me wrong. I love to go do my hunts. But I just, whether it was the kids that I was doing a few years ago, you know, and I get so freaking nervous. If I had to shoot when I'm as nervous as like my daughter, I couldn't hit the side of a barn. Like, I mean, I'm over there like, my daughter's like, Dad, can you calm down? You know, like yes, I'm sorry.
You're gonna scare him off.
There's one clip where I was filming one of my daughters, and you could see I'm just shaking, and I can see it on screen. I'm like, I gotta take my hands off. I can't even have my hands on the tripod. But I get so nervous when they're shooting, and you know, to watch now, like my wife shot this really big buck. Was it 2 years ago? And my oldest daughter's gotten into filming. She's who filmed it.
Oh, wow.
You know, and like they all have filmed stuff. When my middle one, Riley, shot her first doe, oh God, it's hilarious. So my oldest, Hattie, is filming her. So she shoots this doe and she drops it. And Hattie's like, zooms out, turns the camera on Riley, and she's like, how did it feel? And Riley's just looking around. Like, it looks like she's like dazed. And she's like, I need water. Does anybody have water? And Hattie's over there like, no. Tell us what happened. Tell us how. She's trying to fill in the commentary. And Riley's just like, water. I need water. It just those moments, like I'll never forget those moments. Like, you know, she's about to shut down from nervousness. And, you know, and I just want, I want us to get back to that feeling. Like I watched this happen with ranches so many times where, you know, you kind of see a yo-yo. You've got wealthy ranch owners, their kids move to the city, goes back, you know, it's just, it's tough, but like, I just try to make them work for it and enjoy the entire process because it's really what I live for. Like, I mean, you know, aside from my wife and my kids and us having but like that to me is wealth. Like the time to be able to spend in the outdoors with them and, you know, just like, I mean, I will never forget Riley gasping for, you know, just completely, it was just a doe, you know?
100%.
So that, you know, I just think about like how much I struggled as a kid. I didn't have anybody to take me hunting really, except for, you know, Donnie later on and whatnot. And I'm like, man, these kids are shooting, you know, and I just try to keep them back. But in SSF, you know, I wish they'd do some things differently. But I love their campaign that they do, the +1, that every year you should take one more person hunting. What Hattie came up with an idea is that not only do we try to take someone new hunting every year, so we take their friends from school and things like that, but we try to make sure that each one of us shoots an extra doe to donate. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when we can do it to something besides, I mean, food bank's great, don't get me wrong, but, you know, where we'll actually process it and donate it to a church that's giving it to people or something different like that. But I think back to some of the stuff, and look, I get it with public land stuff that you guys have found these spots, and, you know, I don't need to say the names, but, you know, there's a lot of drama about, well, all these people are coming into my spots and Montana and things like that. And I get it, right? You know, but I don't have 2 million acres in my backyard.
Right. You don't have the public land.
You know, and we have to, hunting and shooting, I see this all the time. And this would be, you know, probably one of my messages. Like, we're so ready to jump on people. So I saw this ad on the flight up here. There's some guy trying to sell these like mil-spec pants and, whatever. And in that, he's showing, you can jump up and down, and then these guys jump in the prone, and they're like got ARs, and they're resting on the mags. And I was like, oh man, I got to go to the comments.
I got to read if I'm the only one.
I mean, everybody's just hammering it. It's just like, I get it. We all want to prove that we're substantial in knowledge and whatnot. But like, I was a pretty big idiot hunter when I started. I did some pretty stupid things. I still do stupid things. I'm probably still,
Well, that's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
I mean, every day you learn something new. You're like, jeez, I shouldn't have done that.
Take it a little easy. Take a step back.
Yeah.
And realize, if you're in Montana and you hate all these people coming to your land, like, well, if we don't have these people,
we don't have public land.
We don't have public land, and we don't have people protecting the sport of hunting. Yes. If I'm in Texas and complaining about the fact that every year lease prices go up, because that's something I don't understand too, because inflation is inflation, right?
Right.
But you get guys that are like, well, I paid $500 for a year-long lease back in 1975. Well,
yeah, you also paid 10 cents a gallon of gas.
and
let's not get. That's a really interesting point. 2 points. There's a lot of people out there that are like public land, and then they bitch about how many people are on public land. Mm-hmm. I said you can't have them both. You can't say it's everybody's land, so we need to protect it. We need to protect access to it, and then bitch that there's everybody's on it. I'm sorry. That's how it works, right? I've been there. I've been the guy that pull up at 4:30 in the morning, roll into 3 hours before daylight, roll into a trailhead, and it's full, and there's nowhere to park. I get it, understand that, and thankfully the U.S. is unique. We have a shit ton of public land. Go find another trailhead. It may not be as good a hunting. Would it be that good with that many people up there anyway? Number one. Number two. You can't say, well, tag prices keep going up. It's insane. It's going up. It shouldn't be more than $60 to get an elk license. Dude, you put more in diesel in your truck to get there. And don't get me started on the Can-Am that's on the trailer, or the horse trailer, or the camper, or for God's sakes, the rifle. The ammo, everything else you have. I think tag prices should be set. If meat prices, you want to go shoot a cow elk? Yeah, $100, $150. That's meat. That'll get you through the winter. But you're not going to pay $150 for a 6-point bull elk area. Mm-hmm. One that they're managing for trophy, or a trophy area for deer. Those are different. That's a different commodity, a different product. 100%. I know we got sidetracked in this, but you touched on it.
But it's a good because it needs to be talked about. Like, I was in Montana elk hunting a couple years ago and I shot my elk on the first morning on public land, and I had a mule deer tag. And so I went up, sitting on top of this ridge, waiting. It sucks because on the other side of the highway, there's mule deer everywhere. But my tag was not good because it was a trophy. And these guys came walking up, and they're like, oh, we're so sorry. Like, this place we knew to go. And they're like, do you know another place to go? And I was like, well, what are y'all doing? Y'all elk hunting? And we got out our maps, and we had a good conversation. I was like, actually, y'all need to go elk hunting over there. This is just I'm only over here, mule deer. We just shared it, and we had it. And, this idea that, like, hunting is impervious to inflation just baffles me.
Yeah, and the competitiveness.
Yeah, because I can't go to the grocery store now without eating. So you just think that lease prices and land prices should have stayed the same? Look, I don't want inflation to happen. I want everybody to be able to go hunting and to be able to afford it. But I can barely afford mac and cheese right now.
Yeah.
And I think you have to take a step back and sometimes not worry about your taxidermy and look at the overall,
Yeah.
that +1 mentality of, because we lose hunters every year. And if we don't do something.
Yeah. Your +1, I want to get back to that for a second. Your +1 is amazing. You said this to me, and I believe it was at SHOT Show. I could be wrong, but you said that to me, and I went, oh my gosh, my daughters, because I only have daughters just like you. My daughters have friends that their dads don't hunt, and they're not against it. They just don't do it. Mm-hmm. Why can't I mentor them? They stay at my house on weekends. Why can't one of these weekends I take them to a duck blind? I can't go deer hunting.
They loved it.
Yeah.
They loved it.
Yeah, I am doing that this year. Both of my girls have decided to invite specific friends on a hunt, and we may never see anything because this is a little different than what you guys hunt in Texas, but at least I'm getting them out there. They get to learn what being cold is. They get to learn animal behavior. They get to learn that we can sit underneath a tree at 10 below zero and they don't have a cell phone because you got to be paying attention because it happened like this. Those are teachable things that they will be able to use going into life. Like, I've seen suck and this isn't it.
Well, and that's the sucky stuff that they learn, but then you got those sunrises and you got
the conversation,
just stuff that happens when you're just quiet and sit in the woods. And we've taken friends out and nieces out and things like that, and sometimes they may not want to shoot. Like, my middle child went forever where I was like, you can hunt. No, I just like being the one to tag along. And she was by far the best shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to push you, whenever you're ready. And when she was ready, but she loved tagging along. It wasn't, like she didn't want to not hunt.
Well, there's so much stuff that they can learn. So my youngest killed her first big game animal this summer, but we were in Africa because in Wyoming you can't hunt until you're 12. She's 11. She was able the amount of stuff that she learned about herself in that, everything from walking to trying to be walking quietly to sitting in a blind. We sat in a blind for 2 days in 95 degrees, and you're sitting there, and you got to be camoed up because they can see through it, and water. And
when you're saying blind,
it's
talking about a thatch roof.
No.
Oh, y'all were actually in a
hell
blind.
No. This is we got a ghillie suit or a ghillie net and wrapped it around some trees, and we sit there. This is. I mean, it's pretty rustic, and you're sitting there in the sun beating down on you, 95 degrees, and you're sitting all day in the same crazy, stupid plastic lawn chair thing that is on the verge of being broken, not comfortable, crooked. But it was awesome because she got to learn. I can be thirsty. I'm not going to die. Mm-hmm. I can be hot. I'm not going to die. I have to be quiet or things don't come in. I can't move. Yes, we're in a blind, but I can't move. Otherwise, things don't come in. In all of those teachable things, she learned, and she's a better person because of that, because she set at a bar and she understands, she starts to see the depth of what her human body and her mind can take.
But if you had just taken her and been like, hey, I'm going to drive you down here, we're going to shoot a Cape buffalo out of the back of the truck, wouldn't have been,
not even close. And honestly, that's not the experience I was hoping for.
Right.
I wasn't hoping for that.
So Hattie, my oldest, man, she's a trooper. And she was ready to hunt very early on. She killed her first hog on kindergarten spring break. And so I'm not advocating a certain age.
Yeah, know your kid.
Yeah. My other kids did not come anywhere near that age. Hattie was ready.
Yeah.
Hattie could do it. And I would say, I personally, taking out kids of both veterans, I've seen kids that were 4 years old that were ready, and I've seen kids that weren't ready to hunt at 12, 13.
Right. Yep.
So she's been doing it for a while, and she hit this patch where she got an ego about being able to shoot and said, I don't need to practice.
Ooh.
And
another teachable moment.
She got cut off. I was like, you can't tell me that you don't need to practice because Dad practices all the time, right? And so she learned from it. She came out. Now, I have watched her, and I don't want to go down this tangent too much, but she has an issue with the eye dominance. And so she's actually looking through the scope, and I'm like, I should have corrected this before. But, I mean, she's shooting pigs at like 270 off the ground off of a pair of swaggers. And I'm like, do I kick a winning horse in the ass? The shots I've seen her make and do and be in situations, I don't want to talk about some of this, but she had some people that were being very unsafe. Mm-hmm. And had she not been paying attention, she could have hurt somebody. Right? Mm-hmm. We didn't have control. They came in, and man, I was so proud of her that she was able to see that in her periphery. But what I'm so proud of her, she has learned to process game like, and this has been going on for like 2 years. So she's 13 now. Since she's been 11, I mean, she's been helping, getting ready. At about 11, she got to the point where I'm like, okay, I got to go get dinner started. Right. So in Texas, generally speaking, we have to worry about heat and things like, I mean, we generally load the deer up, bring it back to camp, hang it up, clean it out, and then we've got a cooler. Yeah. And I mean, for 2 years, she's been doing that. Like, we have guests, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to go get dinner started. She's like, got it, Dad. And she's now gotten to the point where she's like, you know what? It's a field dress, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and break it down, pull the skin off, and start deboning it. And I'm like, you sure? Just give me a headlamp. Give me a headlamp.
That's a big job.
And she does it. And she does pretty good at it.
Wow.
And I think that, to me, is like the moments where I'm like, I might have succeeded. I don't know, but I don't want to tell her. Like,
that's girl dad problems right there. Do you know Maddie from Seekins?
No.
Oh my gosh, you need to meet Maddie.
Oh yeah,
Maddie, he's a Green Beret. He's super, but he's a girl dad just like you and I are. And he tells this funny story about he was standing in jump school, I think. And he'd already passed Green Beret. I don't know exactly how it happened, but he's standing there in flip-flops, and he's got green toenails. And he's way older. He's way older than everybody else in the class. And the other guys are like, what the hell's up with Maddie's green toenails? And he just looks at him and goes, girl dad. I'm a freaking girl dad. Someday you'll figure it out. He tells a story about his girls, and it's just like that. You want to make them good citizens and good people, and hopefully don't screw them up.
So this is something, we're getting into some existential stuff here, but I heard this the other day, and I think it's important, right? So my wife treats me very, very well. And she also knows when she doesn't spare the rod on me either, right?
I heard about that.
She keeps me in line. But as a society in our country, we have told every boy you got to treat women this way. You got to treat, all this. But no one's really told girls,
yes,
hey, you got to, you're what was it? The Greek, My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah. Where
she was like, the man is the head of the snake, the woman is the neck. And I think, that's some conversations that we've had. Like, hey, you gotta know how, right, to it's a two-way street.
We all have skills, and we have skills and things that we're good at, and the other one's not. It's a yin and a yang. The Chinese weren't wrong in that.
No. And, I think with these kids today, like, it is crazy. I will say they come home from school. We don't really talk politics to them. They come home. Like, I'll tell you, real honestly, like, my middle one came home, and she's like, Dad, did you know that Biden cheated on the election and actually used dead people to get votes? And I was just like, I mean.
I did, but where did you hear that?
and she was in, what was she, in 3rd grade? And I can't ever remember talking about politics when I was in 3rd grade.
I do, but I lived in a weird household.
Very well, and so
that was a dinner conversation.
we want to, like, the divisiveness in this country is because we don't communicate. And if you and I disagree about, say, Jeeps.
I have a Bronco, damn it. Bronco. I say this to my girls. Jeeps are for chicks. Broncos are for dudes.
So, it has to be okay to disagree with somebody about something. And, it has to be okay.
And even with your spouse, you're like, nah, that's okay. That's the way you feel. It's not the way I feel. And it's okay. It's absolutely cool.
But I being a girl dad is I didn't expect this. My wife says it all the time. She's like, I'm so glad we don't have a son because I would be
beating heads against heads. I see that. I mean, I wasn't blessed with a son. I've got a couple godsons that I'm pretty close with, but I will tell you this: I don't think I think I would have killed him. I honestly think I would have killed him.
We've got to close this up, but I'll tell this funny story about my nephew Isaac.
It's a good name.
Isaac, I've been, he's a great kid.
2 A's or 2 S's?
2 A's.
Yeah, biblical.
And look, I'm not a big video gamer. But when we were in Iraq, we played NCAA football, and so it comes out. And Isaac plays a lot of it. He's 17. Well, I guess he turned 18 now. And so he still thinks he's the king, right? It's like, bro, I'll still take you in NCAA football. So it came out in, what was it, July or whatever. I got it. I prepped for him. I know how he plays, right? So he's he'll be the Chiefs. It'll just be Patrick Mahomes. He throws all down. So I just did cover 2 and just backed up, and I demolished him, 30-0. And I was Virginia Tech. He was Texas, right? So the Texas team is obviously way better than the Virginia Tech team. And I wasn't gonna do much to him, but he got so mad he turned off the controller at the end of the game. Turned off the console because we were playing Wi-Fi or whatever. So it's like, okay. So I put together a reel with Ray Lewis speaking about, what the difference between an elephant and a lion is? It's mentality. An elephant walks in and sees a lion and thinks, I got to run. A lion sees the elephant and says, lunch. And so my wife is like, why are you like that to him? All he wants is your approval. And I'm like, no, I got to.
If you give him that, he will walk all over you.
And so it's funny because, we helped him do his Eagle Scout thing or whatever. And so he wrote a thank you card and it was like P.S., and I'm Uncle Da. Uncle Da, I will beat you next time.
18, so is he a senior this year?
He's a senior this year.
Oof.
Well, and he's talking about Navy, Air Force.
Oh, boy.
Of course.
Air Force, they got good food.
The same thing.
They got good food there.
Good food. But, I'm probably pretty hard on him, and my wife's like, you got to, and I'm like, no, that's not my.
That's actually not your job. Your job is to be hard on him.
You can be, that's what grandma's for.
That's right. Well, Josh, I appreciate the conversation. Always genuine. Lots
this went
of
into
fun stories. This
Sean
went into,
Ryan, Joe Rogan.
Oh my gosh! If you got to take a pee break in the middle, that's a good podcast. I appreciate this. I hope the audience got some stuff out of this that, if nothing else, the world is a crazy place, and it is fun but crazy. Get out there, teach your kids to hunt, teach your kids as friends to hunt.
Absolutely,
man, what a great thing! Take a veteran, donate to some of those organizations that are giving back, and
so this is what I think about, right? So. If you just need to kill a couple does, Like, some of us are at the point where it's just kind of like, is that what, if that doesn't do it for you, share it with somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just an awesome way to, I think, really give back and then teach them not only how to hunt, but how to process, how to eat that meat.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that tastes better than meat that you.
Yep.
And I don't say harvested. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. I didn't run over that mule deer with a combine. I killed it. I tagged it. You know, understand
My
what
dad
you
has
did.
a funny story about a guy in Georgia. We harvest corn. We kill whitetail.
Now, and I said that one time on a post that, you know, at Texas Trophy Hunters when I was there, which we skipped over some of that Texas Trophy Hunters because that was the first time I ever talked to. I had to call Guy because he was the reference for the print. We weren't allowed to say harvested because it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
You have to understand. I didn't grow this. I harvest my peppers. I harvest my tomatoes.
I didn't grow the deer.
I don't need to dampen this down to not offend my neighbor. Like, don't go down that road. You know, and there'll be people that are going to hear this right now and get all mad because when I made that post, they're like, "Oh, the harvest log." I had like a retired game warden from Minnesota going on, but like, if you want to say harvest, go ahead. I don't care. Don't say harvest because you feel like you're going to offend your neighbor.
It's a lot of things. Trophy hunting. Just because you change the word doesn't mean that's any different.
No.
Progression of hunting, you'll end up trophy hunting if you want to or not. It's because humans are competitive. Trophy hunting, it has nothing to do with that being a trophy on a wall. It has to do with I matched with something and I overcame. That's really what it is.
There's times where I've got things hanging on my wall that aren't what most people would consider a trophy, but it's a memory for me.
Yeah.
Because it was an experience that may have not turned out the way I wanted it to, but.
Well, okay, Josh, you're sitting in a room. That deer, all those antelope, all of that these are all my trophies. And I'm going to say trophies. Every single one of them, I can tell you, this buck, one of my best friend's sons was 5 years old when this deer hit the dirt, and he was with us, and he skipped kindergarten to do it. It's one of those things that when I see that, it brings me right back. Back. And way more than a photo, way more than we video all this, way more than that. That is a 3D image in my brain. Mm-hmm. So
I love it.
Yep. Awesome.
I shot a really crappy mule deer in South Dakota, which I never got the horns. I never got the antlers back. I never got the skull. The taxidermist died.
Oh, geez.
It all disappeared.
Oh, geez.
But I have a video and I have a memory because I hit the deer at 400. And he just kept chasing the doe, and he goes down, and I've got Hattie with me. Hattie's probably 7. And I finally get on him, and she's so excited because we're stalking around, and I shoot the deer at 120 laying down or whatever. And I get up, and the camera guy's like going to talk to me, and Hattie just tackles me. Like I'm on my knees, and she just tackles me, and she's like, "That's my daddy," and like this is like a 125-inch, 6-year-old mule deer.
That's awesome.
But that's
thanks for coming on the podcast. By coming on the podcast, you get my chit, and that's a silver coin with Eastmans, and on the podcast, cool little pouch for you, but it's a fully silver coin. So.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, yeah. I love all you guys. I've had a great relationship with you guys over the years, and I think I'm not a Western resident, right? But like we all strive to get out here and be in the West and live in this kind of country, and what you guys do. Hell, I can't tell you how many people are like, I don't know how to do. Well, you need to get a subscription to Eastmans.
And start there.
And
we have online courses. We have TagHub that's all about the data. We have Elk Collective, which is from A to Z on how to hunt elk. We have the Deer Collective on A to Z on how to hunt mule deer. There's a ton of resources. Just spend the time. Spend the time, and you'll be able to kill a trophy of your dreams.
Well, Rome's not built in a day, right?
Right.
Like you don't just show up and become an expert elk hunter, and I've gotten to elk hunt quite a bit myself, and I've gotten to be on a lot of other elk hunts, and it's a magical experience, and if you haven't experienced it,
you should. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, my man. So,
Cheers
to Abu Blue Eyes and monkeys.
Monkeys.